When you blame others for what's happening in your life, you hand over the keys to your own power. The moment you decide that it's always someone else's fault, you stop growing. You stop learning. You stop seeing the role you play in your own destiny. Growth begins when responsibility begins. You can't control everything that happens, but you can control how you respond, what you choose to learn, and how you decide to move forward. When you blame others for your circumstances, you surrender the most valuable power you have. The power to change your own life. Growth begins the very moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking inward. It's easy to fall into the habit of blaming people, situations, even luck when things go wrong, because doing so temporarily shields us from pain and accountability. But in that comfort lies stagnation. The truth is, time you say, "It's not my fault." You're building walls around your potential. You hand control of your happiness to others. You begin to live reactively instead of intentionally. Growth, however, demands that you take back that control, demands that you look at every challenge and say, "This is my life. I am responsible for what I do next." Responsibility is not about guilt or shame, it's about empowerment. It's about recognizing that while you cannot control everything that happens, you can always control how you respond, how you think, what meaning you assign to your experiences. That's where purpose enters. Purpose gives power to goals. It is the invisible energy that transforms vague dreams into tangible realities. Without purpose, goals remain fragile and easily broken. You may start strong, but without a deeper why, you lose momentum at the first sign of resistance. Purpose anchors your actions in meaning. It makes your journey worthwhile, even when it's difficult. When you are driven by purpose, you don't quit because the path is hard. You endure because your heart knows why you began. Think about this. Every great achievement in human history started with a purpose bigger than comfort. People who changed the world weren't motivated solely by success or recognition. They were driven by something within that refused to be silenced. Purpose is what turns effort into devotion and struggle into growth. It gives direction to your energy, clarity to your choices, and fire to your discipline. Without purpose, success feels empty, and failure feels final. But when your actions are fueled by purpose, even setbacks become valuable. They teach you, strengthen you, and refine you. You begin to see obstacles not as roadblocks, but as part of the path itself. When you live without purpose, chase random goals, hoping they'll bring happiness. But when you live with purpose, you build goals that align with your soul. Happiness becomes a byproduct of progress. To live with purpose, you must first stop outsourcing your power. You can't wait for others to validate your dreams, understand your journey, or approve your direction. Purpose is personal. It comes from your experiences, your pain, and your passions. It's born from what breaks your heart and what sets it on fire. The world might not understand it at first, and that's okay. It's not supposed to. Your purpose is not a performance. It's a promise you make to yourself to live authentically and meaningfully. When you take ownership of that promise, you start to live intentionally. You begin to ask yourself, why do I want this goal? What does it mean to me? How does it serve something greater than myself? The clearer your why, the stronger your how. Every action you take gains direction. Failure becomes feedback, not defeat. Purpose turns confusion into clarity and weakness into willpower. But purpose alone isn't enough. You must protect it with your mindset. The way you speak to yourself determines whether your purpose grows or dies. Self-talk is the fuel of purpose. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not enough, that you can't do it, or that others are luckier, your mind will find ways to prove you right. But if you tell yourself, I am capable, I am learning, and I am responsible for my future, your brain will find opportunities to match that belief. The words you whisper to yourself are not harmless. They are the architects of your reality. Positive self-talk is not about ignoring your flaws, it's about believing that your flaws can be improved. It's about treating yourself with compassion instead of criticism, with faith instead of fear. When your inner dialogue aligns with your purpose, your entire mindset transforms. You stop waiting for permission and start creating your own opportunities. Purpose and self-talk work together like the heart and the mind. Purpose gives direction, the why. Self-talk provides the emotional energy, the how. Without purpose, you lose focus. Without positive self-talk, you lose belief. But when both are strong, you become unstoppable. You wake up each morning with a sense of mission, knowing that even on tough days, your work has meaning. You speak life into your goals instead of doubt. You start to view setbacks as signals to adjust, not as reasons to quit. That's how real growth happens. Not when everything goes right, but when you keep going even when everything goes wrong. The truth is, taking responsibility for your life is not easy. It means facing hard truths about yourself, admitting where you've fallen short, and forgiving yourself for the times you blamed others instead of learning. But that honesty is what opens the door to transformation. Responsibility is the soil where purpose grows. When you accept that your life is a reflection of your choices, not just your circumstances, you realize that you have far more power than you once believed. That realization is both humbling and liberating. It humbles you because it forces you to acknowledge your mistakes. It liberates you because it reminds you that change is always possible. Every day becomes a chance to choose differently, to think better, and to act with more intention. Purpose gives power to goals because it creates emotional connection. When your goal is attached to a purpose, something that matters deeply, you don't need constant motivation. You move forward even when no one's watching, even when you're tired, even when it's hard. Purpose makes discipline easier because it ties effort to meaning. You no longer work for applause or approval, you work for alignment with your values, your vision, and your true self. And that's when your goals become unstoppable forces. You begin to see progress, not as something that happens to you, but as something that flows through you. You realize that you are not just chasing success. You are becoming success, one purposeful decision at a time. So stop saying, it's someone else's fault. Stop saying, they made me this way. Because every time you do, you delay your own evolution, your story back. Take your life back. Rewrite the narrative from one of blame to one of power. Say to yourself, everything that happens to me is an opportunity to grow. I may not control what comes my way, but I control what I make of it. Those words shift you from victim to creator. They remind you that no one else is responsible for your peace, your growth, purpose. Only you are. When you begin to live with that mindset, everything changes. Challenges no longer break you, they build you. Failure no longer defines you, it refines you. And every day becomes a chance to move closer to the person you are meant to be. Purpose gives power to goals because it transforms your effort into expression. It makes every step meaningful. It lights your path even in the dark. Stop existing and start living. You stop surviving and start creating. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the struggle, not even the mistakes. Because through it all, you were growing. You were becoming, you were learning to own your power. And it all began the moment you stopped saying, "It's someone else's fault," and started saying, "This is my life, and I'm ready to grow." Life has a way of holding up a mirror to us, reflecting not just what we show to the world, what we often hide from ourselves. The habits, the choices, the attitudes that quietly shape our outcomes. Responsibility is that mirror. It shows us who we truly are beneath the stories we tell and the excuses we make. Many people spend their entire lives avoiding that mirror, terrified of what it might reveal. They would rather point outward than look inward, because it feels easier to say, "They hurt me. They stopped me. They didn't believe in me," than to ask, "What part did I play in this?" Yet growth only begins when you dare to look honestly into that reflection. The mirror of responsibility doesn't exist to shame you. It exists to free you. It reminds you that although you can't control the actions of others, always control your reactions, your thoughts, and your next steps. When you see your reflection clearly, you no longer feel powerless. Begin to recognize your own agency, your own ability to shift your direction. That's where transformation truly begins. Not when the world changes, when you do. Every challenge, every conflict, every disappointment is like a mirror being placed in front of you. The universe is not punishing you, teaching you. When things go wrong, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this showing me about myself?" That question is the foundation of self-awareness, and self-awareness is the birthplace of growth. Responsibility is not about taking blame for everything. It's about taking ownership of what's within your power. If you failed an exam, maybe you didn't study enough. If your relationship fell apart, maybe you avoided difficult conversations. If your dream stalled, maybe you stopped believing in it. The moment you accept your part in the story, you reclaim the ability to rewrite the next chapter. People who refuse to look in the mirror repeat the same lessons over and over again because they never face the truth of what needs to change. Those who embrace responsibility evolve. They learn, they adapt, they rise higher each time. When you take responsibility, you shift from being a passenger to being the driver of your own life. You stop drifting wherever the winds of circumstance take you, start steering with purpose. That's what makes responsibility powerful. It gives you control. It doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you stop wasting energy blaming others and start investing energy into growth. Every time you say, "I am responsible," you strengthen your inner foundation. You remind yourself that even if things fall apart, you have the power to rebuild. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. Awareness of your behavior, your patterns, your mindset. Once you see them clearly, you can change them. As long as you refuse to look, you remain stuck in cycles that feel like fate, but are really just unexamined habits. Responsibility is the light that exposes those patterns so that you can finally step beyond them. It takes courage to face that mirror, because it means confronting uncomfortable truths. You might see that you've been procrastinating on your goals, avoiding growth, because fear disguised itself as logic. You might see that your anger towards someone else was really disappointment in yourself. You might realize that your lack of progress isn't because others blocked you, but because you stopped trying after the first failure. These realizations sting, but they also heal. Awareness hurts before it helps. It's the pain of seeing yourself clearly after years of distortion. When you stand firm and accept what you see, that pain transforms into wisdom. You begin to understand why you made the choices you did, and more importantly, how you can make better ones. The mirror of responsibility never lies. It reflects exactly what you need to face to move forward. Responsibility doesn't mean self-blame or self-criticism, it means self-empowerment. Blame keeps you trapped, even when it's aimed at yourself. Responsibility, on the other hand, sets you free. It says, yes, this is where I am. Yes, I may have contributed to this outcome. And yes, I can do something about it. That mindset is power. It's the shift from victimhood to leadership. When you look in the mirror and accept responsibility, stop waiting for someone else to rescue you. You become your own rescuer. You start creating instead of complaining. You stop saying, if only things were different, and start saying, how can I make them different? That's the question that builds progress. The question that activates potential. Responsibility turns life from something that happens to you into something that happens through you. Many people resist responsibility because they confuse it with guilt. But guilt is backward looking. It keeps you stuck in the past, replaying mistakes. Responsibility looks forward. It asks, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? Every mistake contains a seed of instruction, only if you're willing to look for it. If you avoid responsibility, you also avoid the lesson. And when you avoid the lesson, you repeat the experience. That's why life seems to repeat itself until you learn what it's trying to teach you. The moment you take ownership, you break that cycle. Start seeing patterns not as curses, but as calls to awareness. Life keeps holding up that mirror until you finally see what needs to be seen. Once you do, it stops repeating. Taking responsibility also transforms how you view other people. When you stop blaming, you stop resenting. Begin to understand that most people are just doing the best they can with what they know. You start to forgive, not to excuse them, but to release yourself from the heaviness of bitterness. Forgiveness is a form of responsibility too. It's the act of saying, I won't let your actions dictate my peace anymore. It's reclaiming emotional freedom. When you live in blame, you're chained to the past. When you live in responsibility, you're free to shape the future. The mirror of responsibility also reflects your beliefs about yourself. Constantly tell yourself that you are powerless, unlucky, or destined to fail. That's what the mirror will show. But when you start affirming your ability to learn, to grow, and to change, the reflection changes too. Your outer world mirrors your inner world. The results you see in your life are reflections of the beliefs you hold inside. Change the belief, and the reflection follows. That's why it's essential to pair responsibility with positive self-talk. Responsibility without compassion can become self-punishment, but when you mix responsibility with encouragement, you create transformation. Tell yourself, I'm not perfect, but I'm improving. I've made mistakes, but I'm learning. I can grow from this. These words soften the edges of accountability, turning it from a weapon into a tool. Responsibility is also the foundation of trust in yourself. When you consistently take ownership of your choices, you build confidence. You start believing in your ability to handle life. That inner trust becomes unshakable. You no longer fear challenges because you know you'll respond with strength. You no longer fear change because you trust yourself to adapt. You no longer fear failure because you see it as feedback. That's what responsibility gives you: faith in your own capability. Without it, you'll always feel like life is happening beyond your control. With it, You realize that even when you can't control the storm, you can control your sail. Look in the mirror. Don't flinch. Don't turn away. Ask yourself the hard questions. What choices brought me here? What lessons am I avoiding? What can I do differently? The answers may not come immediately, but asking them opens the door to self-awareness. And once awareness enters, change follows. Remember that the goal is not perfection, but progress. Every time you choose honesty over denial, growth over blame, you become stronger. You become wiser, freer. The mirror of responsibility is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. It shows you where you are and who you can become. Every time you face it with courage, you evolve a little more. Responsibility doesn't restrict you. It releases you from the illusion of helplessness. You are powerful. You are capable. You are the author of your story. Once you accept that truth, no setback can define you, no failure can destroy you. You begin to see life not as a series of problems, but as a series of opportunities to grow. That's the gift of responsibility. It gives you back your reflection, your control, and your freedom to change. Because in the end, growth isn't about fixing the world around you, it's about refining the world within you. And when you change that reflection, everything outside begins to transform too. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Your entire reality begins and ends with the thoughts that echo in your own mind. Every belief you hold, every decision you make, every risk you take, every limit you accept is shaped by your self-talk. The inner dialogue that never stops speaking. It's the silent voice that narrates your life, that whispers encouragement or doubt, that tells you what you can or cannot do. Most people underestimate its power, not realizing that their words are seeds planted deep in the soil of their subconscious, growing into actions, habits, and ultimately, destiny. Your self-talk is rooted in fear, you'll grow insecurity. If it's rooted in belief, you'll grow confidence. The voice in your head can either be your greatest ally or your most destructive enemy. Difference lies in what you choose to feed it every single day. The truth is, your mind is always listening. To your tone, your words, your intentions. When you constantly say things like, I can't, I'm not enough, or I'll never make it, your brain accepts those statements as commands, doesn't question your authority, it simply obeys. It begins to look for evidence to prove you right, filtering your experiences through the lens of limitation. But the same power works in your favor when you change the script. When you start saying, I can figure this out, I'm improving, and I'm capable, your brain shifts to support those beliefs. It begins searching for solutions, noticing opportunities, and creating momentum. Your life starts to reflect the story you tell yourself. Self-talk is not just a reflection of your emotions. It shapes them. It influences your energy, your focus, and even your body language. Think about it. When you tell yourself that you're tired, you feel heavier. When you tell yourself that you're strong, you straighten up and push forward. That's not magic, it's psychology. The brain responds to language, and your words program your emotional and physical state. Athletes, leaders, achievers all understand this. They talk to themselves before they perform. They say, I've got this. Not because they never feel fear, but because they know courage begins in the mind. Positive self-talk doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means choosing to speak hope into difficult moments. It means focusing on what you can control and reminding yourself that you're capable of growth. Every thought you repeat builds a neural pathway, like carving a groove in your brain. The more often you think it, the deeper the groove becomes. It becomes your default response. That's how confidence or insecurity becomes second nature. It's not luck, it's repetition. Before you can transform your self-talk, you have to become aware of it. Most people go through life on autopilot, repeating negative phrases they've inherited from parents, teachers, or society without realizing it. They internalize criticism, comparison, doubt until those voices sound like truth. The first step to change is awareness. Start listening to how you speak to yourself throughout the day. Catch those moments when you say, "I always mess up," or "I'm not good enough," and pause. Would you say those words to a friend? Probably not. Then why say them to yourself? You deserve the same kindness you give others. Your mind believes what you tell it most often, so if you want to change your life, start by changing your inner language. I can't. With I'm learning. Replace I failed. With I'm growing. Replace I don't deserve it. With I'm worthy of good things. These small shifts may seem insignificant at first, but over time, they rebuild your inner world. You must understand that your self-talk is a habit, not a fate. It's learned, which means it can be unlearned. The way you speak to yourself today is the result of years of repetition, not truth. You can reprogram it with patience and intention. Think of your mind like a garden. Every thought is a seed, and your attention is the water. If you keep watering weeds, thoughts of doubt, guilt, they'll take over. But if you start planting new seeds, belief, gratitude, and confidence, your garden will begin to change. It takes time, it's worth it. The more you nurture empowering thoughts, the more natural they become. Eventually, positivity won't feel forced, feel familiar. And that's when transformation begins to take root. Positive self-talk is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's reminding yourself that you have inherent worth and potential. It's choosing to focus on your possibilities instead of your limitations. There will always be challenges, but your inner voice decides whether those challenges shrink you or strengthen you. When something goes wrong, negative self-talk says, "See, you're not good enough." Positive self-talk says, "You're learning how to handle this." The situation might be the same, but the meaning changes entirely. One path leads to paralysis, the other leads to growth. That's how powerful your self-talk is. It defines your interpretation of life. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can control the story you tell yourself about it. And that story becomes everything. If you tell yourself you're unlucky, life will always feel unfair. If you tell yourself you're resilient, every obstacle becomes a test of strength. Words create perspective. Perspective shapes reality. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It believes what you tell it. That's why visualization and affirmations work. They train your mind to see possibility instead of limitation. When you consistently speak in alignment with your goals, your subconscious begins to act as though they're already achievable. Start behaving with confidence, taking risks, and attracting opportunities that match your beliefs. That's not wishful thinking. That's neuroscience. Thoughts build your filters, and your filters build your life. Sometimes, your self-talk has been poisoned by the voices of others. Parents who doubted you, teachers who criticized you, people who mocked your dreams. Their words became your inner dialogue. But it's time to recognize that not every voice in your head belongs to you. You have the right to rewrite the script. You can thank those old voices for trying to protect you, but they don't serve your growth anymore. Replace them with words that lift you up instead of hold you back. Tell yourself the things you wish someone had told you, that you're capable, you're loved, that you're worthy of success. You may not believe it fully at first, but say it anyway. Belief grows through repetition. Speak it until it becomes true in your heart. And remember, self-talk is not only about motivation, it's also about compassion. When you fall short, yourself gently. Don't say, "I'm so stupid." Say, "I made a mistake, and I can learn from it." Self-compassion fuels perseverance far better than self-criticism ever will. You can't bully yourself into greatness. You can only grow through understanding. The inner voice you cultivate will either push you forward or pull you back. So make it your friend, not your enemy. Your words carry power beyond measure. They can lift your energy, calm your fears, and awaken your purpose. When you start to speak positively to yourself, confidence strengthens, your focus sharpens, and your resilience deepens. You begin to move differently, not because life has changed, because you have. You walk with more certainty, not because the path is easier, but because your faith in yourself is stronger. And soon, the world begins to respond differently too, because your energy changes what you attract. So, talk to yourself like someone you love. Encourage yourself through the hard days, celebrate your small wins, and remind yourself of your worth, even when the world forgets it. Your inner voice sets the tone for your outer life. When it is filled with belief, gratitude, and determination, you become unstoppable. The power of self-talk is the power of creation. It's the quiet force that turns dreams into reality, fear into courage, and confusion into clarity. Your words are building your future, sentence by sentence, thought by thought. Choose them wisely, because in the end, the story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. Excuses are comfortable. They protect the ego, soften failure, and give us something to hide behind when life demands more from us than we are ready to give. But comfort is the enemy of growth. The longer we live behind our excuses, the smaller our world becomes. Every excuse is a wall we build between who we are and who we could be. It sounds harmless at first. I don't have time. I'm too tired. It's not the right moment. They had it easier than me. But each one chips away at our potential, by bit, until the dream that once burned bright inside us becomes nothing more than a fading memory. Purpose, on the other hand, the fire that melts those walls. It burns through limitation and lights the way forward when everything else feels dark. Purpose gives you power because it reminds you why you started, why you're still here, and why giving up is not an option. When you are driven by purpose, excuses lose their power. They may still whisper, but they can no longer control you. You begin to realize that every excuse, no matter how convincing, just fear disguised as logic. Fear tells you it's too risky, too late, too hard. But purpose tells you that every step matters, no matter how small. Purpose doesn't eliminate difficulty, it gives you the strength to push through it. The truth is, most excuses sound reasonable. They sound like self-protection, but what they really protect is your comfort zone. And nothing grows there. You can tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, but the right time never arrives. You can convince yourself you don't have the resources. Waiting for perfect conditions is how dreams die quietly. Purpose doesn't wait. It moves, even when it's scared. Purpose says, I'll start with what I have, where I am. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't luck. It's willingness. It's the decision to act even when the voice of doubt is loud. Purpose gives you that decision-making strength because it's tied to something deeper than motivation. Motivation fades when you're tired, discouraged, or distracted, but purpose stays. It's the internal compass that keeps pointing forward even when the road curves and the destination seems far away. Excuses can sound noble, even justified. I can't focus on myself because my family needs me. I don't have time to rest because I'm working for others. Or, I'm too old to start over. But when you peel them back, find fear underneath, the fear of failing, of being judged, of stepping into the unknown. Yet, purpose demands honesty. It asks you to look at your excuses and say, what am I really afraid of? Because fear loses its power once it's named. Can't defeat what you refuse to face. Purpose transforms fear into direction. It doesn't silence it, but it teaches you to walk anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of it. When you put purpose above excuses, you stop negotiating with yourself. Stop saying, someday, and start saying, no. Think about how many times you've convinced yourself that you weren't ready, only to look back later and realize that you were. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a choice. You become ready by deciding to act. Excuses keep you standing still, purpose moves you forward, even when the conditions aren't ideal. Then your full attention. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't those who had perfect beginnings. They're those who refuse to let their imperfections stop them. Every time they wanted to give up, their purpose reminded them why they started. They fell, they failed, they felt fear, but they didn't surrender to it. Chose growth over comfort, purpose over excuses. Excuses can be seductive because they protect your pride, let you blame circumstances instead of confronting effort. But growth requires humility, requires admitting that the only thing standing in your way is you. That realization isn't easy, it stings. But it's also freeing. Once you stop justifying your limits, you start expanding them. The moment you say, no more excuses, you reclaim control of your life. Stop being a prisoner of, I can't, and become the author of, I will. Purpose gives you clarity, strips away the noise of doubt, and reminds you that every day counts. The time you spend making excuses could have been spent building something. I'll do it later. Steals from your future. Purpose gives you urgency. Not the panicked rush of fear, but the calm determination of knowing that your time is valuable, that your life has meaning. Sometimes excuses disguise themselves as realism. You say, I'm just being practical. But what you really mean is, I'm scared to hope again. Purpose gives you permission to believe beyond what's practical. It tells you that progress often looks impossible until it's done. You can't always see the entire staircase. You just have to climb the next step. Purpose is the fuel that keeps you moving when logic tells you to stop. And the more you act from purpose, the smaller your excuses become. What once felt like an obstacle begins to look like a challenge, and challenges can be overcome. You have to understand that every excuse carries a cost. The cost is the life you could have lived if you'd believed in yourself enough to try. The dream you didn't chase, the opportunity you didn't seize, strength you never discovered, all of it fades when excuses win. But when you put purpose first, every effort counts. Even when it doesn't lead to immediate success, purpose turns every setback into a step forward because you're no longer measuring success by results alone, but by growth, persistence, and integrity. There will always be reasons not to act. There will always be voices, internal and external, telling you it's too late, too hard, too uncertain, but there will also be a whisper in your heart reminding you of what matters most. That whisper is purpose. Listen to it. Let it be louder than your doubt. When you follow that voice, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Stop saying, "I wish," and start saying, "I will." You stop seeking permission and start giving yourself power. Purpose makes you unstoppable because it connects effort to meaning. You can endure almost anything if you know why it matters. Excuses crumble in the presence of purpose because purpose gives you perspective. It reminds you that the discomfort of discipline is temporary, but the regret of inaction lasts a lifetime. Every time you push past an excuse, you grow stronger. Prove to yourself that your dreams are worth the effort. That's how confidence is built. Not by waiting for the right conditions, but by acting in spite of them. The truth is, no one succeeds without resistance. Everyone faces obstacles, rejection, and doubt. The difference is that some let excuses become their story, while others let purpose become their strength. The choice is always yours. You can tell yourself 100 reasons why it won't work, or you can focus on the one reason it will: your purpose. When that reason becomes clear, the impossible starts to feel inevitable. You begin to see that the path was never blocked. It was only waiting for you to move. The next time you hear yourself say, "I can't," challenge it. Ask, what's really stopping me? Is it lack of time, or lack of commitment, lack of resources, or lack of belief? Most of the time, the barrier isn't real. It's mental. And once you see that, you realize that excuses are nothing but stories you tell yourself to avoid discomfort. But comfort never created greatness. Purpose did. Purpose over excuses, and your life will begin to transform. You'll find energy where there was once exhaustion, courage where there was once fear, and determination where there was once doubt. You'll stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating it. You'll stop needing approval and start giving yourself permission. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that every excuse you once made could have kept you small, but you chose growth instead. You chose purpose, and that single choice made all the difference. Pain is life's most misunderstood teacher, a force that enters uninvited yet leaves behind the deepest lessons if we are willing to listen. Everyone tries to avoid pain. We run from it, we numb it, we pretend it doesn't matter, but pain always finds us, not because the universe wants to punish us, but because it wants to prepare us. Pain refines, reshapes, and reveals who we truly are beneath the layers of comfort and illusion. The moment you stop seeing pain as your enemy and start seeing it as your instructor, your entire experience of life changes. Every disappointment, failure, every heartbreak, every betrayal, they all carry messages meant for your growth. The pain you feel today might be the reason you rise stronger tomorrow. But that only happens if you decide to transform it instead of resisting it. Transformation begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Because behind every hurt, there is a hidden opportunity to evolve. Pain teaches patience when nothing seems to change. It teaches empathy when you finally understand what others are going through. It teaches humility when you realize how fragile you really are. It teaches strength when you survive what once seemed impossible. Growth does not come from avoiding pain. It comes from walking through it with purpose and awareness. When you're in pain, everything feels heavy, and it's easy to believe that the world is against you. But pain isn't there to destroy you, it's there to strip away what's not meant for you. It removes the masks, the false identities, the illusions of control. It forces you to confront what's real. Pain introduces you to yourself in a way that comfort never could. It reveals your true character, your resilience, your adaptability, your capacity to love and forgive. Some of the strongest people in the world aren't the ones who have avoided pain. They're the ones who have faced it, felt it fully, and turned it into fuel. They didn't let it harden them, they let it shape them. Pain can make you bitter, or it can make you better. The difference lies in your choice. If you keep reliving your hurt and feeding your resentment, pain becomes poison. If you let it refine your perspective, it becomes power. It's the same energy, only transformed. Pain is raw energy. Energy can always be redirected. You can use it to break things, or you can use it to build. When life wounds you, it's tempting to ask for less pain. What you should really ask for is more strength. Because strength doesn't come from ease. It comes from endurance. You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option left. Pain pushes you beyond what you thought was possible. Fire purifying gold, uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable, but necessary for greatness. Every scar carries a story of survival. Those scars are not symbols of weakness, they are evidence of resilience. When you start to honor your pain instead of hating it, you unlock the power it was always meant to give you. Pain has purpose. It shapes your character, deepens your compassion, and sharpens your wisdom. The people who make the biggest impact in this world are often those who've suffered deeply but refused to let their suffering define them. They turned their wounds into wisdom, their struggles into strength, and their heartbreak into healing for others. It's not about pretending pain doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to let it control you. Healing isn't denial. It's transformation. When something breaks inside you, it creates space for something new to grow. Pain breaks your heart open, and through that opening, light can enter. You have to let it. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. So feel your pain fully, but don't pitch a tent there. Let it move through you, not live in you. Cry if you must. Rest if you must. But never stop believing that something beautiful can come out of the broken pieces. Transformation requires trust. Trust that the pain has meaning, even if you can't see it yet. Every dark season carries the seed of a brighter one. Every loss carries the seed of a new beginning. You can't reach your potential without walking through some level of discomfort. Sometimes the discomfort is exactly what propels you into purpose. There's a reason people say pain changes you. It does. You decide how it changes you. Some let pain make them cold, others let it make them kind. Some let it build walls, others let it build wings. The difference lies in perspective. When you choose to see pain as an invitation rather than a punishment, you reclaim your power. You can't always control what hurts you, but you can control how you respond. Response is power. Pain tests your response. It asks, will you stay down or will you rise? And every time you rise, you evolve. Transformation isn't instant. It's a process of breaking, bending, and rebuilding. It's messy, but it's meaningful. Growth is often disguised as struggle, and pain is the proof that you are changing. A seed. It must crack open before it grows. The breaking is not the end, it's the beginning. The same is true for you. When your life feels like it's falling apart, it might actually be falling into place. Pain is not the signal to give up, it's the signal to dig deeper. The universe's way of saying, you are ready for more. Every painful experience expands your capacity for greatness. It builds emotional muscle. It sharpens intuition. It clarifies what really matters. You begin to realize that your pain has trained you for the purpose you were meant to fulfill. Without it, you wouldn't be who you are. Without it, you wouldn't have the depth or the strength to guide others. Your pain becomes your message, your story, your legacy. And when you begin to help others heal from the same pain that once broke you, you realize that your suffering was not wasted. That's when pain fully transforms into power. When it becomes a force for good beyond yourself, from "Why me?" to "How can I use this?" You turn your wounds into wisdom, and your experiences become bridges that connect you to others. Pain humbles you, grounds you, and teaches you that every human being carries something unseen. When you embrace your pain, you gain empathy. When you deny it, you lose connection. The world doesn't need more people who hide their hurt. It needs more people who've learned from it and use it to bring light. Transformation is not about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. It's about realizing that the rain is part of your becoming. Doesn't shrink you, it stretches you. It widens your capacity for love, compassion, and understanding. Your full attention. The most beautiful souls are not those who've had it easy. They're the ones who've walked through fire and still choose to love, still choose to hope, choose to rise. That choice, that defiance in the face of pain, is the true mark of power. Pain may bend you, but it cannot break you unless you let it. You are stronger than what tried to hurt you, wiser because of what you endured, and more compassionate because of what you survived. So the next time pain finds you, don't resist it. Meet it with awareness. Ask it what it came to teach. Let it carve away what's false so that what's real can remain. Let it shape your heart into something softer yet stronger. Let it remind you that life is not meant to be perfect, it's meant to be meaningful. Pain gives life depth, turns ordinary existence into extraordinary resilience. You don't need to be afraid of pain anymore. You just need to know how to use it, because when you stop fighting it and start learning from it, you unlock your greatest power. The ability to turn suffering into strength, loss into lesson, wounds into wisdom. That is the true art of transformation, to take the things that were meant to break you and use them to build something unbreakable within you. And when you live that truth, when you embody that strength, pain no longer defines you. It refines you. It becomes the fire that forges your purpose, the pressure that shapes your power, and the reason you rise higher than ever before. Mindset is the invisible force that shapes your reality. It's the lens through which you see the world, filter that colors every experience, every challenge, and every opportunity that crosses your path. People can face the exact same obstacle. One sees defeat, the other sees a lesson. And the only difference between them is mindset. It is not intelligence, luck, or talent that separates success from stagnation, but the way you think, the beliefs you hold about what is possible for you. The truth is, your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. If you believe you can, you'll find a way. If you believe you can't, you'll find an excuse. That's the power of mindset. It either propels you forward or paralyzes you in place. You can have every skill in the world, every opportunity in your hands, but if your mind is trapped in limitation, none of it will matter. Your mindset determines how you interpret failure, how you respond to pain, how you handle uncertainty. It determines whether you break down or break through. Growth begins the moment you realize that your mind is not your enemy. It's your greatest tool, and like any tool, it must be shaped, sharpened, used with intention. A fixed mindset believes that talent is static, that intelligence is predetermined, that circumstances are fate. It says, I am who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. A growth mindset, however, whispers, I can become more. It understands that ability is built through effort, that every failure is feedback, that every setback is a setup for a comeback. When you adopt a growth mindset, you stop fearing mistakes because you recognize that mistakes are simply evidence of progress. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 because you understand that growth is personal, not competitive. A fixed mindset locks you in the prison of perfectionism, afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid to look foolish. Growth mindset sets you free. It invites curiosity, experimentation, and courage. It reminds you that everything great was once awkward, messy, uncertain. The people you admire most are not those who never failed, but those who never gave up. They chose to see each failure as a teacher rather than a verdict. That's the quiet magic of mindset. It turns obstacles into opportunities, into power, struggle into strength. When you shift your mindset, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your life. You begin to take responsibility for your energy, your emotions, your reactions. You stop saying, I can't control what's happening, and start saying, I can control how I respond. That small shift in language changes everything, because mindset is choice. You may not choose your circumstances, but you always choose your attitude. And your attitude shapes your outcomes. Every morning you have two choices: to wake up seeing problems or to wake up seeing possibilities. The problems might still exist. Your mindset determines whether you approach them with fear or with faith. Fear limits you, faith liberates you. The mind, when focused on negativity, becomes a magnet for pain, but when focused on growth, it becomes a generator of power. When you feed your mind hope, gratitude, and discipline, it begins to work for you instead of against you. The most successful people in life aren't those who never feel doubt or discouragement. They're the ones who have trained their minds to push through it. They know that the voice of doubt will always whisper, "You can't." But their mindset answers, "Watch me." They understand that adversity isn't there to block them. It's there to build them. Challenge strengthens the mind if you allow it to. Mindset is like muscle. It grows through resistance. The more you stretch it, the stronger it becomes. When you hit a wall, a fixed mindset says, "This is the end." But a growth mindset says, "This is the beginning of learning something new." That's how innovation happens, how courage is born, through the willingness to see beyond the current problem and trust in your capacity to find solutions. Sometimes, people wait for their circumstances to improve before they change their mindset. They say, "Once things get better, I'll think more positively." But that's backwards. Things get better because you think differently. Your thoughts shape your focus. Focus shapes your experience. If you focus on what's missing, you'll always feel lack. If you focus on what's possible, start creating momentum. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant will grow. If you plant doubt, you'll harvest fear. If you plant faith, you'll harvest strength. It's a daily discipline. You have to tend to your thoughts, weed out negativity, and nurture the seeds of confidence, resilience, and gratitude. Over time, those thoughts become habits, and those habits become your character. Mindset doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it with purpose. When something difficult happens, you can say, "This is happening to me," or you can say, "This is happening for me." That one word, "for," changes everything, shifts you from victim to creator. Suddenly, you start to look for lessons instead of losses. You start to see growth instead of grief. You begin to realize that the universe isn't punishing you. It's preparing you. Every challenge is custom, designed to strengthen the parts of you that are ready to evolve. With the right mindset, pain becomes practice, and failure becomes fuel. You stop running from discomfort and start running toward development. To strengthen your mindset, you must also master your self-talk. The way you speak to yourself determines the way you face the world. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not enough," your mind will find evidence to prove it. But if you tell yourself, "I am growing, I am learning, I am capable," your mind will search for opportunities that align with that belief. The subconscious mind is obedient. It follows the instructions you give it. Feed it fear, and it will protect you from growth. Feed it courage, and it will push you toward greatness. Every time you choose empowering thoughts, you rewire your brain to handle life differently. Science calls it neuroplasticity, mindset calls it transformation. The more you practice thinking positively, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, optimism becomes your default setting, not because life is perfect, but because you've trained your mind to see potential even in imperfection. A powerful mindset also understands that comparison is poison. When you compare your journey to someone else's, you lose sight of your own growth. Start to measure your worth by external standards instead of internal progress. The truth is, everyone's path is different. Your timeline is unique. Struggles, your lessons, your victories, all of them belong to you. A growth mindset focuses inward. It asks, "I better than I was yesterday?" That's the only comparison that matters. And when you begin to celebrate progress instead of perfection, your confidence grows. You stop chasing validation and start pursuing mastery. You stop trying to impress others and start trying to improve yourself. The mind is both your battlefield and your kingdom. If you don't control it, it will control you. That's why mindset work must be daily. You can't just think positively once and expect permanent change. You have to build mental strength the way you build physical strength. Through consistency, challenge, and repetition. Wake up with intention. Feed your mind with empowering thoughts, not toxic ones. Surround yourself with people who lift you higher, not those who drag you down. Protect your peace like it's gold, because it is. Your mindset is sacred. It determines your quality of life far more than your circumstances ever could. When you look at those who've achieved greatness, athletes, artists, leaders, innovators, you'll notice one common thread: mental resilience. They weren't necessarily the most gifted. They were the most determined. They trained their minds to stay calm under pressure, to see possibility in problems, to keep moving when others stopped. They turned adversity into advantage. That's what mindset mastery does. It gives you the ability to stay grounded in chaos and hopeful in uncertainty. It doesn't eliminate struggle, but it makes struggle meaningful. At its core, mindset is faith. Faith in your ability to grow, to adapt, to rise again no matter how many times you fall. Trusting that every step forward, no matter how small, matters. It's believing that you are not defined by your past, but by what you choose to think and do today. Life will always test you, but your mindset decides whether those tests become trauma or transformation. Every time you choose growth, gratitude, and perseverance over fear, frustration, and doubt, you build a stronger version of yourself. And over time, version becomes unshakable. So remember this: your mind is your greatest asset. Guard it, grow it, guide it toward light. When you master your mindset, you master your life. Because success isn't first achieved with action. It's achieved with belief. And once belief takes root, action follows naturally. Change your mindset, and you change your energy. Change your energy, and you change your reality. In the end, it's not your past, your pain, or your circumstances that define you. It's your mindset. And once you understand that, hold the power to transform everything. The victim role is one of the most seductive traps the human mind can fall into, because it gives you comfort without responsibility, sympathy without change, and excuses without effort. It allows you to point the finger outward instead of inward, to say, "Look what they did to me," instead of asking, "What can I do now?" But the truth is, as long as you see yourself as the victim, you give away your power. You hand control of your life to your pain, your past, and the people who hurt you. Letting go of the victim role doesn't mean pretending that bad things didn't happen. It means refusing to let them define you. It means understanding that you cannot change what happened, but you can change what happens next. Life is not fair, and it never will be, but fairness isn't required for growth. What's required is ownership. The radical acceptance that your healing, your peace, your success are your responsibility and no one else's. When you live in victimhood, you replay your story of pain again and again, waiting for someone to apologize, to fix, to save. But healing doesn't come from outside. It begins the moment you decide you're done living small because of what someone else did. Letting go of the victim role is not about blame. It's about freedom. It's about choosing to stop identifying with your wounds and start identifying with your strength. Everyone has a story. Many stories include trauma, betrayal, or loss. Pain is universal, but victimhood is optional. Two people can experience the same heartbreak. One uses it to rise, the other uses it to remain stuck. The difference isn't the event, it's the mindset. When you see yourself as powerless, you attract situations that reinforce that belief. You find evidence that life is unfair, that people are cruel, that nothing works out. But when you shift your perspective and see yourself as powerful, even your pain becomes part of your purpose. The victim mindset thrives on the past, empowerment thrives on the present. You can't move forward while clinging to what's behind you. To grow, you must release the story that keeps you in chains. That story might have once protected you. It gave meaning to your suffering. But now it's time to write a new one. Cannot be both the prisoner and the author of your life. You must choose. The victim role often disguises itself as righteousness. It says, "I have every reason to be angry." And maybe you do. Maybe you were mistreated, misunderstood, abandoned, or betrayed. But holding on to that pain doesn't punish them. It punishes you. Every time you replay that memory, you reopen the wound. You let the same hurt live rent free in your mind, shaping your choices and your confidence. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened, about releasing the power it holds over you. It's not about saying, "What you did is okay," but rather, "I refuse to let what you did control who I become." That's strength. That's growth. When you forgive, you reclaim your energy. You stop investing in resentment and start investing in your evolution. Letting go of victimhood requires honesty. The courage to admit that some part of you has grown comfortable in your pain. Because pain gives you identity. It gives you a story to tell, a reason for why things are the way they are. And losing that story can feel like losing a part of yourself. You are not your pain. You are the person who survived it. You are not your past. You are the power that walked through it. The victim mindset says, I can't change. But the truth is you can. You can rise, rebuild, and redefine your life at any moment you choose. The key is to stop waiting for validation from the people who hurt you. Stop expecting closure from those who have no interest in giving it. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need their apology to move forward. You only need your decision. Healing begins when you take responsibility for what happens next, not when you get justice for what happened before. Sometimes, we stay stuck in victimhood because it's familiar. Growth is uncertain, but pain is predictable, and the mind craves familiarity. We replay the same stories because they give us a sense of control, even if that control is rooted in suffering. But at some point you must ask yourself, do I want to be right about how unfair life is, or do I want to be free? You can't have both. Freedom requires surrender. It means accepting that you can't change the past, but you can choose your focus. The more you focus on what's gone wrong, the more you'll attract what continues to go wrong. But when you shift your focus to what you can do, what you can build, learn, you take back your power. The moment you take responsibility, everything changes. Responsibility is not blame, it's power. It says, I may not have caused this, but I can decide how to respond. That is where growth begins. You might think, but they don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe they don't. But forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's about freeing your mind from the past so you can create something new. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. You deserve better than that. You deserve peace. But peace comes with letting go, not just of the person, but of the story that keeps you chained to them. The story that says you're broken, you're unlucky, that you'll never be okay. Those are lies born from pain, not truth born from power. The truth is, you are stronger than you think, wiser than you were, and more capable than you realize. The fact that you're still standing means you've already survived everything that was meant to destroy you. That's not weakness. That's resilience. When you stop identifying as the victim, you start to see how much strength your pain has built within you. Start to realize that what hurt you also taught you. It taught you boundaries, empathy, patience, and discernment. Taught you what you want and what you will never accept again. Pain shapes wisdom when you allow it to. And that wisdom becomes your power. You no longer need to relive your story because you've learned from it. You can tell it from a place of growth, not grievance. You can look back without bitterness because you're no longer trapped in it. The past becomes a chapter, not a prison. The most powerful moment in your life will come when you stop saying, "They hurt me," and start saying, "I healed." When you take ownership of your healing, you stop waiting for the world to give you what you need. You start giving it to yourself. You begin to understand that the power to create peace, happiness, and purpose has always been within you. Victim role convinces you that your power lies outside of you, in other people's actions or apologies. But empowerment begins when you bring that power back home. You can't rewrite the past, but you can redefine the meaning it holds. You can turn your wounds into wisdom, your scars into strength, and your pain into purpose. Letting go of victimhood also means letting go of control. Specifically, the illusion that you can control others. You can't make them see what they did. You can't make them feel remorse or regret. You can't make them change. But you can change. You can choose how much space they occupy in your mind. You can choose what story you tell about what happened. You can choose to stop waiting and start living. Every time you choose peace over bitterness, reclaim another piece of your soul. Every time you choose forgiveness over revenge, you rise a little higher. Every time you choose gratitude for the lesson instead of resentment for the pain, you grow stronger. Freedom is not forgetting, it's transforming. It's turning your pain into purpose, your struggle into service, your past into power. When you let go of the victim role, you don't erase what happened, you rise above it. You learn to thank your pain for what it taught you and release it with grace. You no longer need pity because you've found purpose. You no longer need validation because you've found value. No longer need revenge because you've found peace. That's the highest form of healing. Not forgetting, but transforming. So if you find yourself living in the story of your pain, it's time to write a new one. One where you are not the broken character waiting to be rescued, the hero who rises, rebuilds, and reclaims their destiny. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Letting go of the victim role is the moment you step into your power. It's the moment you stop reliving your wounds and start rewriting your life. You owe it to yourself to stop surviving and start thriving, to stop blaming and start building, to stop waiting for change and start becoming it. Because when you let go of being the victim, become something far greater, the victor of your own story. Discipline is the silent power that transforms dreams into reality, the invisible bridge between who you are and who you want to become, the unseen force that separates those who wish from those who win. Without discipline, goals remain words and potential remains buried beneath excuses. Discipline is not about punishment or restriction. It is about alignment, about bringing your daily actions into harmony with your higher vision. When you say you want change, the universe listens not to your words but to your consistency. Discipline is what proves you mean it. It's the daily decision to do what must be done when you don't feel like it. It's showing up after motivation fades, when no one is watching, and when the results are not yet visible. Discipline is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It is the quiet, repetitive commitment to self-mastery that leads to extraordinary transformation. Great success story, from athletes to artists to entrepreneurs, is built not on bursts of inspiration, but on the unshakable structure of discipline, the foundation of growth, because it teaches you control, patience, and endurance. The 3 pillars of real progress. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going when motivation dies. To understand discipline, you must understand resistance. The human mind naturally seeks comfort. It wants the easy path, the path of least effort. But growth lives on the opposite side of comfort. The moment you commit to a new goal, resistance appears. It whispers excuses, distractions, and fears. Discipline is your armor against that resistance. It's the voice that says, do it anyway. Every time you act despite discomfort, you strengthen your mental muscles. You teach your mind that you are in control, not your moods, not your laziness, not your fear. This is how growth happens, through small, repeated acts of discipline that compound over time. Just like a muscle, your full attention, the more you practice discipline, the stronger it becomes. It's not something you're born with, it's something you build. The secret of those who achieve greatness is not that they always feel motivated, but that they've trained themselves to act regardless of how they feel. Learned that feelings are fleeting, but actions build empires. Discipline also teaches self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce your belief that you can be trusted. You stop being the person who sets goals and breaks them, Start becoming the person who follows through no matter what. This is how confidence is built. Not through affirmations or external validation, through evidence of your own reliability. When you say, "I'll wake up early," and you do, your mind begins to trust your word. When you say, "I'll eat healthy," and you follow through, you feel proud. Pride fuels momentum, and momentum fuels transformation. Without discipline, trust decays, and without self-trust, no amount of motivation can sustain you. So, discipline is not just about doing the work, it's about building integrity within yourself. Every act of discipline is a vote for your future self, a message that says, "I take my growth seriously." The path of discipline is not easy. It demands sacrifice. You'll have to give up comfort, distractions, and sometimes even relationships that don't align with your vision. But what you gain is far greater clarity, freedom, and strength. Discipline gives you control over your life because it removes the chaos of indecision. When you are disciplined, you no longer debate whether you should act. You simply act. Eliminate wasted energy on "should I" and focus it on "I will." That mental clarity is priceless. Discipline also brings emotional stability because it replaces impulsive reactions with intentional responses. You no longer chase temporary pleasure, you pursue long-term fulfillment. You begin to understand that growth isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about doing good consistently. Satisfaction comes not from indulgence, but from progress. Many people mistake discipline for rigidity, but real discipline is flexibility with focus. It's not about being perfect every day, it's about showing up more often than not. It's about recovering quickly when you slip, of drowning in guilt or self-criticism. Discipline gives you resilience. It says, "I may fall, but I won't stay down." You don't need to be flawless. You just need to be faithful. Consistency beats intensity. A small, steady effort done daily will always outlast the sporadic bursts of inspiration. That's why discipline is called the bridge between goals and growth. It carries you over the gap between intention and execution, any area of your life. Health, career, relationships, mindset. Discipline is the common thread that determines your success. In health, discipline is waking up to exercise when your bed is warm and your body is tired. In career, discipline is doing deep work when distractions call. Relationships, discipline is choosing communication over ego, patience over impulse. In mindset, discipline is catching negative thoughts and replacing them with empowering ones. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small act of discipline builds momentum, and momentum builds transformation. The law of discipline is simple. What you do daily defines who you become permanently. But discipline does not thrive without purpose. You can't force yourself to be disciplined if you don't have a clear reason behind your actions. Purpose gives discipline meaning. Why is strong enough. The how becomes manageable. If you know what you're working toward and why it matters, the sacrifices feel worthwhile. Purpose is the emotional fuel, discipline is the structural engine. Together, they create unstoppable growth. So, before you demand more discipline from yourself, ask, why do I want this? If your answer is rooted in ego or comparison, your discipline will fade. But if it's rooted in genuine vision, a desire to become your best self, then discipline becomes a form of self-love. It's not punishment, protection. You protect your future from the weakness of the present. You protect your dreams from the noise of distraction. There will be days when discipline feels like a burden. You'll question why you're working so hard, why others seem to have it easier. Those are the moments that test your commitment. Growth happens not when things are easy, but when they're hard. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are sculpting your future self. You're building character, grit, focus, qualities that no one can give you and no failure can take away. Discipline is not about controlling life, about controlling your reaction to life. You can't control what happens, but you can control how consistently you show up. That's your power. The truth is, discipline sets you free. It frees you from the chaos of indecision, from the regret of procrastination, from the shame of unfulfilled potential. People often think freedom means doing whatever you want, but real freedom means having the strength to do what's right. Discipline gives you that strength. It lets you live intentionally, not reactively. It makes your future predictable because your actions are consistent. Disciplined choice today is a gift to your future self. A deposit in the bank of success. At the heart of discipline is love. Love for your vision, your growth, and your potential. When you truly love yourself, you don't indulge your weaknesses, you nurture your strength. Stop making excuses because you know your dreams deserve better. Discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about honoring yourself. Act not because you have to, but because you're worth it. And when discipline is driven by love, it becomes unstoppable. It turns pain into purpose, obstacles into opportunities, and effort into excellence. So remember, every time you act with discipline, you're not just doing a task. You're becoming someone new. You're shaping your identity, proving to yourself that you can rely on your own strength. Discipline is the bridge between goals and growth because it is the only thing that turns intention into achievement. Without it, dreams stay in your mind. With it, they become your life. Discipline is the quiet power behind every great transformation, and once you master it, there's nothing you can't create, overcome, or become. Consistency is the heartbeat of transformation, the unseen rhythm that turns fleeting effort into lasting change, the quiet force that separates those who dream from those who do. Power of consistent action lies in its simplicity. It's not about giant leaps or dramatic breakthroughs, but about showing up every single day, no matter how small the step, no matter how slow the progress. Success is not born in moments of inspiration, it is built in moments of repetition. The person who keeps taking consistent action, even when motivation fades, will always outgrow the person who only moves when it feels easy. Consistency compounds, just like interest in a bank account. Each small effort deposits energy into your future, and over time, that energy multiplies into results so powerful that they seem miraculous to outsiders. But to you, they are simply the result of persistence. Consistent action turns habits into mastery, goals into achievements, and dreams into realities. It's the discipline of showing up again and again that forges strength, clarity, and confidence. Every time you take consistent action, you're not just moving toward your goal. You're becoming the kind of person who achieves goals. The greatest myth about success is that it comes from bursts of motivation or one grand opportunity, but the truth is, success comes from the quiet repetition of doing the right things over and over again, even when it's boring, even when no one notices, when it feels like nothing is happening. Consistency is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Think of a sculptor chiseling a stone. Strike seems insignificant until, one day, the masterpiece emerges. The same applies to your goals. You might not see the result of your effort today, tomorrow, or even next month, but every bit of consistent action is shaping your future behind the scenes. The person who works out every day for 15 minutes will achieve more than the one who goes to the gym once a month for 3 hours. The writer who writes a single page each morning will finish a book sooner than the one who waits for inspiration. The entrepreneur who builds systems daily will succeed faster than the one who jumps from one big idea to another. Consistency beats intensity every time because it builds momentum. And momentum is the real secret to success. Once you have momentum, your actions become easier, your habits become natural, and your confidence grows effortlessly. But consistency is not easy, requires patience in a world obsessed with instant results. It demands faith when progress is invisible and the temptation to quit is loud. The greatest challenge of consistent action is not the work itself. It's managing your expectations. You must learn to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. When you focus only on results, you will give up when they don't appear quickly enough. But when you focus on showing up, moving, and in time the results will come. Every day you act consistently, you're planting seeds. Some will sprout quickly, others will take months or years. But one day, you'll look back and realize that everything you have came from everything you did consistently. That's why consistency is the most underrated form of magic. It works slowly, quietly, and then all at once. Consistency also builds credibility with yourself and with others. When you do what you said you would do, day after day, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. That self-trust becomes your greatest source of confidence. You no longer rely on motivation because you've built integrity. You no longer wait for external validation because you know your worth is built through your actions. Others will begin to trust you too, not because of what you say, but because of what you repeatedly do. Consistency builds reputation, and reputation builds opportunity. World rewards those who persist when others give up. Most people quit just before the results begin to appear because they cannot endure the silence between effort and reward. But if you can stay consistent through that silence, you will separate yourself from 95% of people. The truth is, success is less about brilliance and more about endurance. The willingness to keep moving forward, one small, steady step at a time. One of the reasons people struggle with consistency is because they try to do too much too soon. They start with enthusiasm, set huge goals, and when progress doesn't come fast enough, they lose interest. The secret to lasting consistency is starting small, so small that it feels almost effortless. It's better to take one small action daily than to burn out after a week of intensity. Small actions repeated consistently have a compounding effect. In time they create massive change. The key is not perfection but persistence. If you miss a day, don't quit. Restart. If you make a mistake, learn. Consistency is not about never falling. It's about never staying down. It's about making the choice. Every single day, move one step closer to your vision, no matter how far it feels. Consistency also trains your brain for focus. In a world full of distractions, consistent action builds the mental discipline to stay committed. Every time you choose consistency over distraction, you strengthen your focus muscle. Teach your mind to prioritize long-term satisfaction over short-term pleasure. That's how consistency transforms not only your habits but also your identity. You become the kind of person who finishes what they start. You begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, and strong. And when your identity aligns with your goals, your actions become effortless because you're no longer forcing yourself to act. You're acting in alignment with who you believe you are. Consistent action reshapes your self-image from someone who tries to someone who achieves. Another truth about consistent action is that it removes the need for motivation. When your actions become habitual, you no longer waste energy deciding whether to act. You simply do. Consistency turns effort into rhythm. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't debate it, you just do it. Imagine if you built the same automatic discipline around your most important goals. That's the power of consistency. It transforms effort into ease. What once required willpower becomes natural, and when your daily habits align with your vision, success becomes inevitable. You won't have to chase results, they'll chase you. Consistency also builds resilience because it teaches you that progress is not linear. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, other days you'll struggle to move at all. But as long as you keep showing up, you're still winning. Each consistent action is a declaration that says, I refuse to quit. And that refusal is what creates transformation. Life will test your commitment. There will be obstacles, delays, moments of doubt. But consistency is what allows you to push through those moments. It's the fuel that keeps the flame alive when everything around you tries to put it out. The truth is, consistent action is less about time and more about energy. It's not about working non-stop. It's about showing up intentionally. 10 minutes of focused effort daily will beat 1 hour of distracted work occasionally. Consistency multiplies your effort through focus. When you show up regularly, you learn faster, adapt quicker, and grow stronger. You begin to build momentum, and momentum is what makes success unstoppable. The hardest part of any goal is the beginning, but once you build momentum through consistent action, the process becomes easier because success generates its own motivation. Perhaps the most powerful part of consistent action is how it transforms your relationship with yourself. Every time you follow through on your word, you prove that you are capable of growth. You stop seeing yourself as someone who trays, and start believing in your ability to execute. That self-belief becomes your greatest asset. You no longer wait for perfect timing or ideal conditions. You create them through consistency. You begin to realize that greatness isn't about extraordinary talent, but extraordinary persistence. Ordinary people who act consistently achieve extraordinary results because consistency compounds effort into excellence. So, the next time you're tempted to quit, remember that small daily actions are what create massive life change. The book you want to write begins with 1 paragraph a day. The body you want to build begins with 1 workout a day. The business you want to grow begins with 1 step a day. The person you want to become begins with 1 choice a day. Consistency doesn't demand perfection, only demands persistence. The difference between success and failure often comes down to who kept going when it got hard. Be that person, because in the end, consistent action isn't just about achieving goals. It's about building character. It's about becoming someone who keeps their promises, someone who endures, someone who grows. The power of consistent action lies in this truth. What you do repeatedly, you become permanently. And when your actions align with your vision day after day, you don't just reach your goals. You redefine what's possible for your life. Every set back carries within it the seed of a greater comeback. Every fall holds the opportunity to rise higher, and every failure whispers a message of growth if you have the courage to listen. Setbacks are not signs that you are unworthy, unlucky, or incapable. They are tests, invitations to evolve, and reminders that growth requires resistance. Just as muscles grow only when pushed beyond their comfort zone, your character grows when life challenges you. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't the absence of obstacles. It's the ability to transform those obstacles into lessons, wisdom, and strength. When something doesn't go your way, you have two choices. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. The path of growth demands that you choose the latter, that you see every setback not as a stop sign, but as a stepping stone. The greatest transformations often come disguised as disappointments, and the moments that feel like endings are often beginnings in disguise. Setbacks are the universe's way of slowing you down so you can realign with what truly matters. Sometimes you don't get what you want because you're meant to get something better. Sometimes doors close not to punish you, but to redirect you. Yet in the moment of failure, it's hard to see the purpose. Pain narrows your focus. It makes you feel like the world has shrunk around your disappointment. If you pause, breathe, and look deeper, you'll often find that what seems like a loss is simply life's way of preparing you for more. Every person who has achieved greatness has faced failure, rejection, and defeat. But they used those moments as fuel, not as excuses. They learned that setbacks don't define your worth, your response does. When you decide to turn your pain into power, setbacks become part of your success story. Turning setbacks into strength begins with perspective. You must stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone changes everything, because when you see your struggle as a teacher, not a punishment, you take back your power. Failure is feedback. It's information about what didn't work, not a reflection of your value. The most successful people in the world are not the ones who avoid failure, but the ones who embrace it, study it, and grow from it. Thomas Edison didn't fail 1,000 times. He discovered 1,000 ways that didn't work. Each attempt brought him closer to success. The same is true for you. Every setback is an opportunity to refine your methods, strengthen your mindset, and deepen your resilience. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about always rising. It's about standing up one more time than you fall down. Life will knock you down. That's inevitable. But what defines you is not how many times you fall, but how many times you get back up. Every comeback builds your confidence because it reminds you that you can survive what you once thought would destroy you. That's real strength. The kind that can't be faked or borrowed. It's forged in the fire of experience, through disappointment, heartbreak, and loss. You don't build resilience by avoiding pain. You build it by walking through pain and discovering that you are stronger than you thought. The beauty of setbacks is that they reveal your true capacity. You don't discover your strength when life is easy. You discover it when life tests you. One of the most powerful ways to turn setbacks into strength is to let go of the need for perfection. Many people are afraid to try again because they think failure means they're not good enough. But perfection is a trap. It keeps you stuck in fear, unable to grow. Progress is born from imperfection. Every master was once a beginner, every expert once a student. The only way to fail permanently is to stop trying. When you accept that mistakes are part of mastery, you free yourself from the fear of failing. Setbacks then become experiments, valuable lessons that guide you closer to success. Each one teaches you what to improve, what to change, what to let go of. When you treat setbacks as data instead of drama, you learn faster and move forward with clarity. But not all setbacks are external, are internal. Sometimes the greatest obstacle is your own self-doubt. You question your worth, your talent, your potential. You let one failure define your entire identity. But you must remember that failing at something doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human. Growth requires risk, and risk always carries the possibility of falling short. The only people who never fail are the ones who never try. If you have failed, means you were brave enough to act, to step out of your comfort zone, to reach for something beyond what you already had. That courage alone is strength. Every setback you've faced proves that you had the courage to take a chance, and that courage is what will lead you forward again. Setbacks also have a way of stripping away what no longer serves you. They expose what's weak, untrue, or unnecessary. They show you who really supports you, what you truly value, and how much you're willing to fight for your dreams. Sometimes you need to fall to see what's worth getting back up for. In that sense, setbacks are sacred. They purify your purpose. When everything falls apart, you get to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more intentional. Stop chasing what doesn't align with your soul and start focusing on what does. Every setback is a chance to reset, to rebuild, realign with your higher path. Turning pain into power also means taking responsibility, not blame, but ownership. You may not be responsible for what happened, but you are responsible for how you respond. The moment you take ownership of your response, you shift from victim to creator. You can't always control your circumstances, but you can control your perspective, your choices, and your actions. That's where your power lies. When you stop saying, "This ruined me," and start saying, "This refined me," you transform your energy. The same fire that burns can also forge. It's all about how you use it. Every setback has a message hidden inside it. Most people miss it because they're too busy focusing on the pain. The message might be that it's time to let go of something, to slow down, to grow stronger, to think differently, or to trust yourself more deeply. If you can learn to extract the lesson, the pain loses its power over you. You begin to see that nothing is wasted. Even your failures serve a purpose. They give you depth, humility, and compassion. Connect you to others who are struggling and allow you to guide them with authenticity. The people who inspire the world the most are not the ones who have never fallen. They are the ones who have fallen and risen with grace. Turn setbacks into strength. You must also practice patience. Growth takes time. Healing takes time. Rebuilding takes time. You cannot rush the process of becoming. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to trust that the struggle is serving you, even when you can't yet see how. But one day, you'll look back and realize that the very thing that felt like the end was the beginning of your evolution. Every scar will tell a story of resilience. Every disappointment will reveal how much you've grown. Every setback will make sense because it led you to a version of yourself that is wiser, stronger, and more grounded than ever before. Strength born from setbacks is unshakable because it's been tested. It's not built on fantasy, it's built on experience. When you've fallen and risen enough times, you stop fearing failure. You stop needing everything to go right, because you know you can handle it when it doesn't. Dim your full attention. That's real freedom, the kind that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can and will rise again. Become unstoppable not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. So, the next time life knocks you down, remember, you are not starting over. You are starting wiser. Every setback has sharpened you, strengthened you, and prepared you for what's next. Let your pain become your power, your scars become your symbols, and your losses become your lessons. The strength you're building now will carry you through every challenge ahead. Turning setbacks into strength isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about knowing that even when it isn't, you still are. You still have the power to rise, to rebuild, to begin again. And that is the essence of true growth, not avoiding the fall, mastering the art of rising stronger every single time.